The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative. On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Say hello, Dick Morris.
Hi, everybody.
This is the Dick Morris, Doug DiPirro Show.
This is Dick Morris. We're here with Doug DiPirro, and sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
Beautiful.
You know, the astronauts, when they returned, issued a statement or in a press conference and spoke about the view from space, the view of the planet Earth from space. And it was a very, very moving commentary.
Did it look like a flat plate, a round plate that's flat?
Very similar to that.
Hold on a second. I have to say this. Dick was on Rita Cosby's show the other day, and it was right after the moon shot thing, and then we were talking about it. And I said, because they sent pictures of the Earth, I said, that's beautiful, this picture. I go, the flat Earth people are going to be crazy about this. It's a round, but they're going to say it was photoshopped. And I said, you got to mention that to Rita. And Dick Morris says to Rita, oh, my friend Doug DiPirro is a flat Earth guy, and he believes that. I go, no! So I need to figure that, tell everyone, absolutely not. Okay, go, Dick.
But the comments they made and the ideas they expressed were so similar, almost verbatim, not rehearsed, but almost verbatim, to those that were made by the original astronauts when they returned from space. And they spoke of an overview from space of looking at the planet Earth. This was before we were used to the photos of an Earth set or an Earth rising from space. And they talked about how incredible it was to see that view and to think about that view. And it really made them say that there's a whole view here now called the overview from space. And it's changing the effective view that everybody has. And they were so articulate about it and so beautiful about it. And it seemed to me that the key that's so similar to the view that they expressed, their predecessors expressed during the earlier flights. And it struck me that it was very important to look at this from the point of view of the progress that the human race has made in the last years since the initial Apollo moon landing. And
was that 1969, I think?
69, yeah.
69, mm-hmm.
And it was such a similarity of views. And ultimately, it really is an opportunity to look at the change that has happened in the world and to the human race since the first visit to the moon. And since the first time we looked at the Earth from the moon in that amazing way. And I'd like to talk about some of those because I think that we just take them for granted, and I think we don't understand how thoroughly and totally the world has changed. The first thing that strikes me is that when the Earth was first seen from space and the Apollo astronauts walked on the moon, we were locked in the middle of the most horrible war you can imagine in Vietnam. We had 58,000 American soldiers killed, and the death reports were incredible. Every day, tens and tens of thousands of men killed and women killed, mainly men. And you go to the Vietnam Memorial now and you see the long tablets with all the names listed. And it's just incredible that we were going through that. And so incredible that we're not going through it now. Basically, war no longer involves major casualties.
And boots on the ground.
In the United States. And not even boots on the ground, boots in the graveyard.
Oh, yeah.
Because the nature of war has changed so dramatically. And so totally because of the driving force of American public opinion. Back in the 1960s, when war was far more acceptable, and we could tolerate 58,000 dead,
I don't know about tolerate, but we understood.
Well, we tolerated it. We let them do it. We
let
the government go ahead and do that. We let our government and the Vietnamese government, the enemy government, kill that many people.
I know. I don't like the word.
Now there are wars with no casualties.
Mm-hmm.
There are no dead. I think 2 or 3 people have died in the Iran war, and even that causes hell. And there is a clear perception that war no longer involves massive death. And now it doesn't even involve problems with natural resources. Indeed, the big weapon that Iran has, the big power that it has,
oil,
is the ability to starve itself and the world to death, or to think they are, or to try to. Yet,
because they don't care about life themselves, they think they're going to go to their virgins up there.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's a huge change, and we're looking at a war without casualties. Think about it. In the Korean War, in the World War II, we have over almost 300,000 American dead, and then in Korea, we had 54,000 American dead.
Wow.
And then when we went to
one of the things I want to say,
we've had 58,000 American dead.
Mm-hmm.
And now wars are fought with no Americans being killed. That is an amazing accomplishment. What really happened is that the Pentagon came to realize that it was no longer a question of killing more of the enemy than of us. It was a question of not killing any of us. They simply were not willing to tolerate war that would involve American deaths. And we have not had that. In the Iran war, the most interesting thing to me is that nobody died. No Americans died.
Right.
And while large numbers of Iranians died, that was their choice, or their government's choice.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, in fact, a war without casualties. And we Americans are going completely crazy because their gas prices have gone up by 25 cents, or 25%, which is temporary. That'll all come down very soon. But we have to understand that fundamentally history has changed, and we have a war without death, and without American death. And we have to, it is amazing that that's happening.
Well, let me say this, Dick. There's a couple of things here. Number one, drones. There's drones, and AI. I've been looking into quite a few things of how they're waging this war. Number one, you have drones that are doing a lot of the work, so if they get shot down, a pilot doesn't get shot down. That's number one. But then AI, that strategy, and I'm not 100% on this, but I know enough about it, just studying yesterday. The AI looks at, in war, the generals get together and all the smart guys, and they go, okay, we're going to take this bridge, we're going to go over here to the west, and there's troops over there, and there's a military base over there, and they figure it out on paper, and they got little models and stick figures and the whole thing. Now AI does it, and it knows and it does it within, where generals, it took them a day to a week to 2 weeks to figure this all out. AI does it in minutes, literally in minutes. And when our planes go up, AI is there saying, here's where they're going, here's where they're walking. So that's a big part of what's going on with the war and whatnot. And one of the reasons why guys aren't getting shot down.
And I think that is also a subset of the basic concept that Francis Fukuyama articulated in his very famous book, The End of History, that he wrote at about the same time that the Earth was first seen from outer space. And he said the end of history, and by that he meant the collapse of communism, the end of the Soviet Union as a power. China had not yet risen as a power, and he called this all the end of history. And it obviously was not the end of history. There are obviously serious problems in world history that continued. But we have to see this all as a continuum, all as really 80 years of incredible progress. And we had an opportunity in Artemis to reflect on that. We now see the world as a shelter for us. And we see the collapse of war, a collapse of American deaths from war, as being a tremendous piece of progress. And we're witnessing it now in Iran, and we think back to the days of Vietnam, to the days of Korea, and we realize that this is a totally different world, a totally different dynamic. And is it the end of history? Well, it is the end of economic history. The world originally was divided horribly in wars about religion. And then after that, we had wars about economic systems, Marxism versus capitalism. Now we really have resolved those questions. And while there still are occasional wars here or there over religion, not many, and some casualties in religious wars, not many, there is a global consensus that free market capitalism is the way to go, and a global understanding that that's the way the world has to be. And it is amazing that that's happened. This planet that we're watching from outer space, this planet Earth, is a planet united in a fundamental way by consensus, except for a few crazies and a few leftists in the U.S., that competition, free markets, are the way to achieve progress. So basically, we've gone from a situation where the entire threat of casualties and war from religious reasons was basically ended, and then ended for economic reasons, and now increasingly it's being eclipsed by technology.
Well, one of the best things, and I shouldn't say best, with Iran, them lobbing bombs over to their neighbors, so it unifies all the people around. Plus, Trump has got oil. He took Venezuela, right? He didn't take it, but, he's now in a lot of control of that. So this whole thing with the Straits, Iran locking it up or tightening it up, I don't know where it's going right now as of yesterday and today. But that's going to kill China and Russia. Not us as much, because we're going to have oil. We're going to be fine with the oil.
In this new asymmetric world of threatened global economic suicide, asymmetric, President Trump has stripped the terrorists of a tremendous weapon, terrifying weapon in their toolbox. The threat that the collateral damage of their own and the world economists' overreaction to the use of military force might sink the world's economies. In our incestuously interconnected economies, the Ayatollahs and the others have been able to threaten the world with the closing of the Straits of Hormuz, saying basically that shaving a few tenths of a point in economic growth would bring such disastrous political consequences in our evenly balanced partisan alliances in the world that it would topple administrations and change world politics. But under Donald Trump, a new political leader has summoned the courage to defy that threat and to prove it to be hollow. By standing up, Trump has in effect told a timid world, bring it on, make my day. More than any strategic advantage that will come from calling Iran's bluff is the tactical fact that it can no longer threaten global economic suicide. In the past, mad, mutually assured destruction held global insanity in check. During the Cold War, so many realized that if one nation attacked the other in a nuclear war, the world would blow up. It would just be destroyed. Mad, mutually assured destruction. But now we have debunked the myth of mutually assured economic destruction, and the threat that by closing the straits, by in retaliation, blowing up their power plants, blowing up their civilization to the extent they have it, as Trump puts it, is no longer a valid threat, because Trump's figured out a way to beat it. By decapitation strikes early in the war, he assured that the enemy calculations would at least be sane, and that the madmen who would lead the world to global suicide were now dead, literally killed. Just as nobody was willing to blow up the world during the Cold War era, Trump proved that nobody was willing to blow up civilization by economic suicide. It took a leader like Trump, who had no skin in the game or oil at risk in the Straits of Hormuz, to take that chance. But he did it, and his courage worked. It was and is a messy process, and the brinksmanship we've had to go through has caused more than a few migraines. But Trump has brought us through it in great shape. John Fetterman, the senator from Pennsylvania, the Democrat, said that Trump has made the world a markedly safer place than it has ever been by destroying the Ayatollah, by crippling Iran's nuclear capabilities, and it's evident that's the case.
You know, Fetterman's leaving the party.
Yeah, it is. He's
leaving the Democratic Party.
It's the fate of great writers and creators like Michelangelo and Tolstoy never to have finished their works of art and literature. It's always in progress. Now Donald Trump's diplomacy may likewise never finish. The Gaza peace is not complete, and we wait tensely to see if the Straits of Hormuz will ever open. But the corner has been turned, and the process of peace has begun. The world owes Donald Trump an incredible, unbelievable debt.
You know, with that, why don't we have a couple of minutes. Why don't we take on, let's do On the Rocks with Roxanne, because she's talking about this a bit. Hi, Rock, you there?
Hi, Dick. Hi, Doug.
Good.
How are you?
So we got a couple of minutes, so if you could just get right to it, hon.
Okay, right to it.
Right to it.
Well, the quote is, the only thing to fear is fear itself. FDR said in his 1933 first inaugural address. Today reflect on pivotal moments in American history, honoring the legacies of President Franklin D. Roosevelt and Abraham Lincoln, who demonstrated remarkable leadership during times of turmoil. We must be the great arsenal of democracy. This day, FDR passed away midway through his second term. And this day in 1865, President Lincoln was shot, leading to his own passing. The Civil War had ended only 5 days prior on April 9th. Their courage and vision continue to inspire us as we navigate our own era of transformation and growth. And so here we are. As the Ukraine-Russian war shows light for an end in sight, another war in Iran, a war of humanity, negotiations of no nuclear weapons, still, after Vice President J.D. Vance's visit, is an unsure path, even though they said it would be decided within a day. A house cannot stand divided. We as Americans have to show solidarity, confidence, fortitude for our own Commander-in-Chief, President Donald Trump. He has proven every time decisions not only for the better of Americans, but also not turning a blind eye to the continued atrocities committed in the world by these regimes. This had to happen, and it has, through President Trump's leadership. It's not complicated. It's a choice. Choose nuclear weapons or your citizens and your country's peace. The choice is theirs. Consequences, yes, they will come with that choice. Some say they're too severe, but one must ask, how severe is the torture and the murdering of innocent Iranian citizens in the public square? Thousands of millions continue to live in fear. And as we look to the future, we are reminded that even in the face of adversity, we have the power to shape a brighter tomorrow. We must draw upon our collective resilience and determination to address these complex challenges here and abroad. President Trump's decisions to negotiate towards peace using leverage in a language only those who could continue crimes of such inhumanity could understand. As our presidents passed, they are warriors in their own right. History will show there no longer can be a country where slaughter is an everyday occurrence. and the safety of the world is at stake. As we move forward, let's remain upholding our values that has defined us as a nature. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And so let us continue to strive for a world where freedom and justice for all. But I'll leave you with this. I watched the debate of the late Charlie Kirk last evening, and a young man was boasting with unalterated hatred for the United States. Charlie sighed and asked, "Will you leave to move to another country?" And the young man angrily shouted, "No." And Charlie smiled with that knowing smile and replied, "And that is exactly why we know we're living in the greatest country in the world."
Beautiful.
Amen, Charlie.
Thank you, Rock. Go on.
Yeah. Okay, I was just going to mention to Dick, him talking about the space that the shuttle Columbia landed on this date after 36 orbits, successfully touching down in California.
Wow. I didn't know that either. Listen, stay on the line, Roxana. We got to take a break. We'll come back, but I want to give the call-in number is 800-848-9222. 800-848-9222. We have to go to a break. Thank you.
This is the Dick Morris Show on 77 WABC. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We're taking the opportunity of looking at the perspectives offered by the Artemis astronauts after they have now returned to Earth. And we're comparing them with the perspectives that their colleagues and predecessors had when they returned to Earth after the successful moonwalk, and using this chance to talk about how the world has changed and how this planet has evolved over the 80 years in the interim. The first point I made was that we have now entered a world in which war does not have casualties, American casualties at least, which is to say casualties in effective choice. It used to be that the world was divided horribly over economics, Marxism versus capitalism. And before that, it was split over religious wars, Protestant versus Catholic. But now, in effect, the world has decided that the correct reaction on religion is total freedom of religion, total free religious choice, and that that's the only way to solve the great conflicts that had dominated humanity for hundreds of years. Then we came to a conclusion more recently in the last century that the economic decisions that had dominated the human race, that had forced everything into tremendous conflict of free markets versus capitalism, was also over. That the macro conclusion we have already reached and have reached is that free market capitalism prevails, and that we will not attempt to regulate the global economy by communism or by socialism. We're in the process of coming to that conclusion, just as we're in the process of coming to the conclusion that religious freedom is the way to resolve the conflicts over religion. And it's taking a while to achieve it, but we're clearly on the path. And the number of places where the global economy is controlled by government and controlled by so-called extra-historical forces, which is to say government's intervention, is decreasing sharply. As China changes, as Russia collapses, as the proxy regimes of Russia like Cuba, Maduro, and others fall apart, it's becoming increasingly clear that economics will no longer be the key cause of global conflict. The Artemis astronauts said that as they looked at the world coming in from outer space, they realized there's a great reversal. They see outer space as receding, and the world as welcoming them back to the safety of the planet. But the fact is that we are only welcomed back to the safety of the planet because we're making it a safe planet. And we're using that to end the threat of annihilation by nuclear war, and now increasingly the threat of annihilation by economic war.
My friend Ron Garan, astronaut on the space shuttle, he flew many missions. He was the commander of the space shuttle, and he used to say that when he was looking down at that ball, the Earth, he used to say, "We're nothing. We're little ants on this giant thing." You know what I mean? And he put it in perspective. I'm going to have him on. If I can get him next week, I'll have him on. Ron Garan from Yonkers. He was an astronaut on the space shuttle. But since we're talking about economics, the blue states taxpayers flee.
Let's get back to that in a bit.
Okay.
Let me continue with the view from Artemis.
Okay.
So the global causes of conflict, the global threats cease. While they're still there and we still have to work at them, we have to realize that Trump has done a huge amount in bringing those to stop. In particular, the most immediate one is he is eliminating the threat of global suicide. Just as MAD, the elimination of mass destruction from nuclear war as a threat, Trump has basically confronted the threat of MAES, mass economic suicide, and instead told those who would force us through that, those who would commit that kind of global annihilation, that their bluff won't work anymore, that the United States is not going to back down, and that he will not back down.
Well, he doesn't bluff.
And that's enormously important.
Yeah. Go on.
Now, a big part of this is the changes in the last 80 years that we have experienced as a planet. We have to recognize those changes as we see them unfolding before us in the majesty of Earth. The first is the tyranny no longer works. You can have isolated regimes who persecute people and throw them in jail and kill them in the streets. But fundamentally, it is no longer possible for a country to terrorize its own citizens in the long term. The fact that Iran is basically a scene from the movie Blazing Saddles. Do you remember in the movie the sheriff, I forget the name of the actor, black guy, is the black sheriff.
I'll shoot him, don't do anything.
People are furious about that, and they're threatening to kill the sheriff.
No, he's threatening himself.
The black sheriff says, "Don't do that. Don't kill him. Listen to him. He'll do what he says."
He puts the gun to his own head.
Yeah, and he puts the gun to his own head. And that's essentially where the autocracies of the world are at. And it could never be more evident than it is now.
You couldn't use it verbatim in that skit.
Yeah.
It was
right.
Hilarious.
One of the huge changes going on that we can see from the Artemis level view of the Earth from outer space is the end of wokeism and the rebirth of meritocracy as the basis of global civilization. There was a time, back during the Biden days and before, when there was the threat that a meritocracy would no longer work, that people were questioning the idea of merit, the idea of winners and losers, the idea of pass and fail, the idea that you did not have to succeed in order to survive. And increasingly we're coming to understand as we look at the Trump economy that losers lose and that the economy falls apart when ultimately wokeism takes over. And the rebirth of meritocracy as the basis for how civilization allocates its resources, to me, is a major change that's occurred during the modern era. The other change that's part of that is the end of fraud-based election outcomes. We'd like to say that we have free elections in the U.S., but the fact of the matter is that we're only beginning to have free elections in the U.S. For the most part, the outcome of our elections has been predetermined by fraud, by having people who are illegal voting, by having people who lie about their identities, assert them and vote based on them. And fraud-based election outcomes have come decreasingly to dominate our politics. I was thinking back as part of this retrospective view of the Earth from Artemis, how in 1960, Richard Nixon had very convincing evidence that he had in fact won the presidency and that John Kennedy stole the presidency by fraud, largely in Chicago, voting more people than there were alive.
Gene Connor.
And saying that these cases of fraud should be counted as votes. Mm-hmm. And they were, and Nixon didn't challenge it, and Kennedy took office, and history has not recorded the theft of that election. Mm-hmm. But it was stolen. And this process of ending the stealing of elections, which Donald Trump is bringing in with the vote ID program and the crackdown on phony registrations and the ending of illegal immigrants voting and participating in our society, I think is another huge change that's very important. The other gigantic change that we need to look at in the light of Artemis is that the future of the world and of the human race will increasingly be based on outer space colonialism, on the ability to colonize the moon, Mars, and other planets, and sustain human life there. The left likes to say, oh my God, global warming, we're entering a terrible era where the world can't sustain its growth. And before that, they said that overpopulation was a huge threat until its demographics were proven essentially false. And what we're now looking at is increasingly realizing that if we want to perpetuate the human race, we want to assure our survival, the way to do that is in outer space. What's the solution to scarcity, to the problems we have in dealing with rare earth minerals and dealing with other objects of scarcity? The answer is outer space, colonization and exploration of other planets. Those are not just expeditions, they're not just spectacles, they're our future, and they're how we're going to survive in the future. Just as the demographers said that we needed birth control as a method of perpetuating the human race and stopping global starvation, it is now apparent that the way we need to do that is to colonize outer space, grow our food there, get our oxygen there, develop our raw materials there, and that this is no longer a spectator sport. This is fundamental to the future of the world and of civilization. The other element that I think is important as we look at this is for us to step back and look at healthcare in the United States and understand how enormously successful it's been over the last 70 or 80 years. We spoke on this program last week and the week before how the percentage of Americans who smoke has dropped significantly, and it's now less than 10% of the population, whereas at the time of the first moon landings it was about 35 or 40%. We do have teens increasingly vape. We do have people using Quaaludes and other substitutes for that. But fundamentally, the worldwide plague of smoking, the worldwide plague of healthcare caused by diseases caused by people, is, I think, receding. And it's interesting that now so many people survive cancer that it can really not be characterized as an acute disease. It's a condition that people live with. I have cancer because about 8 years ago I developed tongue cancer, and I would normally be dead. And so would tens and millions of people in the world. And that's a level of progress and a level of certainty about our future that I think is terribly important. So we pass these milestones and we don't mark them off. We don't look at them. We pass the milestone of the end of religious wars. We pass the milestone of the end of economic wars. We're passing the milestone now of the end of the threat of global suicide. And we mark them off and we say, whoa, that was a close one, or we narrowly averted that. And sometimes we haven't diverted it. Sometimes there still is the threat of worldwide resource scarcity, like of rare minerals. But ultimately, we're surviving. The democracy goes on, and the United States leads the way in stopping the world from killing itself.
Let's go to the phone. We have Sandra Sandra from New Jersey. Hi, Sandra.
Hi, Sandra.
Good afternoon. I wanted to say something about forced harvesting. It's happening as we speak in China. In our country, if you need a transplant, you get on a list, you wait about a year or more, but under the control of China's Communist Party, as we speak, someone is being forced to donate their body parts for someone who wants to pay the money, and they're promised this in a week and a half. Can you imagine that there are now 200 hospitals that have enlisted in this program to get money, get the people's blood, and find out what they need, and they're promised a body part in a week and a half.
Wow.
This is and the people that they're taking these body parts from are very innocent people that believe in meditation, and they actually have a name for their beliefs. It's called Falun Gong.
Right.
Falun Gong, yeah.
Yeah, and the book, by the way, and this author is dying to come on your show. His name is Jan Yakelik, and he's coming to the club in June, and the name of the book is called Killed to Order. Now, Dr. Phil McGraw did an interview with Jan Yakelik, and I urge everyone to go online, look up Jan Yakelik, and I'll spell it. It's spelled JANJEKIELEK, and then look up Dr. Phil McGraw, and you'll see the whole interview done so expertly, and you're gonna be shocked at what they're doing to these innocent people. 60,000 to 90,000 operations are happening every year by forcing people to die. These people are innocent, and because they believe in peace and they believe in meditation, they get arrested, they go into jail, and they're put in these warehouses, and when someone needs a certain organ and it matches someone in that cell, they get called and they go on the operating table, and you know what else? They don't give you anesthesia because they feel it's going to ruin the result of the surgery. So this is frightening. This is frightening. It's happening. And I urge everyone to start, and I hope you can have him on your show. He said he'd be honored to come on your show, Dick and Doug.
Love to talk with him. I did a lot of work on the concept of human organ harvesting, they call it, in Romania, where the communist regime in its last days was resorting economically to forcing people to donate their body parts. And they called it human organ harvesting. And it is one of the delightful things we have to talk about in the world.
Not donating. Well, we have to, go on, Dick. I was going to say we have to take a break, but I want to talk about Sandra's Women's Republican Club. It's fantastic. Just quick, where is it, Sandra? On 50th, and tell us about it.
It's on 3 West 51st Street, and in a couple of weeks, Sean Spicer is going to be there with you guys that are coming, I hope.
Yes.
So Sean Spicer soon, and then in June we're going to have this wonderful author who's the senior editor at Epic Times. His name is Jan Yakelik, Killed to Order, and hopefully we'll have him on your show. And we all have to learn what's going on out there. It's evil, it's frightening, and you can go to China on a vacation. You do something wrong.
You just come home without an arm.
Yeah, you won't come home. No, you know what they do? After they take your body parts, they cremate you because they don't want to have any proof that they did this to you. They don't want anyone talking. It has to be quiet. And when you go to have the surgery done, a lot of times they don't know where it's coming from. But when you figure a week and a half, you're going to get what you want, you have to figure where are all these organs coming from.
Anyway, we have to take a break, Sandra. Thank you so much. And
we'll talk about it next week.
And I suggest a lot of people check out the Women's Republican Club. It's great. Okay, when we get back, thank you.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is the Dick Morris.
Welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPirro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. One of the other changes that's been going on lately is the massive depopulation of high-tax states and the increasing population of low-tax states.
We're talking about the blue state taxpayer fleet?
Yeah.
So blue states are pushing new taxes on high earners, billions in income, and thousands of taxpayers move to red states. In California, New York, Washington, and Michigan, lawmakers are advancing proposals and ballot efforts aimed at top earners. It's crazy, right? Washington is advancing a tax on income over $1 million, while California is pushing a tax on a billionaire net worth. Other states are weighing similar plans, including taxes on residents who leave and winding the scope.
A goodbye present.
A ransom tax. IRS migration data from 22 to 2023 shows California lost nearly $12 billion in taxable income in a single year, while New York lost $10 billion. Florida gained $20 billion and Texas gained $5.5 billion as taxpayers moved and took their income with them. California lost roughly 230,000 residents over the same period, while lower tax states gained both population and income at the same time. Kathy Hochul acknowledged the shift as red states previously. Maybe the first step should be go down to Palm Beach and see who, this is in Florida, go down to Palm Beach and see who you can bring back home because of our tax base has been eroded. These proposals assume high earners will stay and absorb higher taxes. The migration data shows otherwise. J.P. Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon has warned about New York's tax structure. New York City, this is him speaking, New York City has much going for it, but it also has the highest city and state corporate tax and the highest individual income taxes. Business leaders have been warning about this shift for years, pointing to rising costs, regulatory pressure, and the tax burdens that'll make long-term investment harder to justify in high-tax states compared to lower-cost alternatives, especially as relocation becomes easier for both individuals and corporations. The same pattern shows up in recent moves by the ultra-wealthy. Starbucks founder Howard Schultz is relocating to Florida after decades in Seattle, a move he described as personal that came as Washington pushed higher taxes.
Have a cup of coffee as you go.
Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, made a similar move to Florida during the early tax fight. This is unbelievable. High earners can move. Companies can move. Capital moves even faster. When tax burdens rise, those moves follow. Blue states continue to pursue higher taxes, higher rates, even as taxpayers generating that revenue relocate. Florida and Texas, Florida and Texas do not impose income tax, and their population and income gains reflect that. That contrast is visible in where people move, where companies expand, and where income lands. Those taxpayers contribute more than income tax revenue. So right there, they invest, build companies, hire workers, and drive the economic activity that state budgets depend on. When they leave, the loss does not stay at the top. It spreads across the tax base. Just proof taxes don't really work. They just don't. That creates another problem. Budgets built around a shrinking group become harder to sustain. Yet the response has often been to raise rates further or expand who gets taxes at the base salary. That's ridiculous. They're raising the taxes and more people leave. Anyway, on this, we have Betsy McCoy, who's talking about taxes in Connecticut. She's running for governor of Connecticut. Hi, Betsy. How are you?
Hi, Betsy.
So nice to join you. And yes, eliminating the state income tax is a big part of my Connecticut comeback plan. It's going to be a gradual elimination, very fiscally responsible, and it's modeled on what quite a few other states have already done successfully. You know, I keep hearing naysayers say you can't eliminate the income tax, it's half the state revenue. But the way this is done is you announce that you're going to zero, companies start to move in, business activity picks up, and the new law says that every time revenue increases 5%, that new revenue has to be used to axe the tax. It can't be used to create another new left-wing program and increase government costs. Instead, it must be used to gradually phase out the income tax. And it works. It's worked in every state it's been tried in. You can look at a map of the United States.
Even school tax revenues go up. Even social program spending goes up because they're no longer wasting the money on bureaucracy and on tax-eating programs. And it basically Betsy's program basically creates a lockbox, which said that when your revenue goes up because of regular economic activity, the politicians can't spend it. It gets put in effect, a lockbox. And that money has to be used first to eliminate or cut the state income tax. And soon the entire country is going to be forced on this. And will be forced onto it because those who don't adopt this program will see their economies wither. And those who do adopt will see their economies grow. And even when the politicians don't see it, the leaders of the state see it, the budget people, because they see how their ability to function is being drained because they're overtaxing. And that trend is coming, and Betsy McCoy, who's running for governor of Connecticut, is one of the first people to understand that and see that.
Betsy's got a lot more to talk about. Betsy, we're going to take a break. Stay on the line, please. Right when we come back, you talk to us about your lawsuit, okay?
Yes.
Okay, when we get back.
This is the Dick Morris Show on 77 WABC. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPirro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
Let's get right back.
Betsy McCoy, who is running for governor of Connecticut, is bringing a lawsuit against the federal government that I think will be very significant. Tell them about it, Betsy.
Well, it's very important part of my Connecticut comeback economic plan. Of course, phasing out the income tax is crucial, and the president's economic advisors has said that phasing out the income tax will increase business startups by 25%, and it will actually increase the pre-tax earnings of salaried wage earners by about $6,700, which means not just that you're not paying the tax, you're going to be earning more pre-tax, which is great. But we also have to address energy costs. And energy costs in Connecticut are crippling growth as well as crippling consumers. Connecticut ranks 48th out of 50 states. It's only worse in Hawaii, which is an island way off the continent, removed from the continent, distanced from the continent, and California, which is removed from reality. They have their own energy problems. But next comes Connecticut, where ratepayers, electricity ratepayers, pay the third highest rates in America. And a major reason is that Connecticut is very dependent on natural gas, and it doesn't produce any natural gas. But Kathy Hochul is really to blame for this, and Ned Lamont, because there's a huge supply of natural gas in Pennsylvania, and the Pennsylvanians would love to sell it to Connecticut. but we need a pipeline. And a company has tried year after year after year to get the permits to build a pipeline called the Constitution Pipeline from Pennsylvania, where the fracking occurs, all the way to Connecticut, where the consumers need natural gas. Right now, Connecticut is importing natural gas from faraway countries at as much as triple the cost of domestic natural gas. It's a terrible problem, and it's because Kathy Hochul has allowed her Department of Environmental Conservation, DEC, to stymie this pipeline. So I am filing a federal lawsuit in the U.S. District Court, Southern District of New York, Tuesday morning, slamming her for violating the Interstate Commerce Clause of the U.S. Constitution.
Betsy, tell us how we send you money. How do we get to you? What do you
that's a great question. And let me explain why the money is necessary, Doug. In order to compete in this race, I need to raise about $340,000 from about 3,000 to 5,000 donors. Once I do that, I qualify for the public funding in Connecticut. That your donation will unlock, wait till you hear this, $22 million in public funding, enough for us to reach our sound economic message to every voter in the state. We can turn Connecticut into a prosperous, low-tax state again.
Okay, give us the address because we got to take a break.
Betsy2026.com. You don't have an opportunity often to make a big difference with a small donation, but baby, this time you really can.
And the max donation people could give is $340.
$340 is the max, but send in 100, send in 50.
Right.
Send in something, buy a piece of history.
Beautiful, and we need you.
Betsy2026.com.
We need you, Betsy. Okay, we have to take a break. Thank you so much, Betsy. Really appreciate it.
This is the Dick Morris Show on 77 WABC. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is the Dick Morris, Doug DiPirro Show, sponsored by the Patriot
Welcome
Gold.
back to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPirro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. One of the things that's going on politically these days is that the voters are increasingly shifting from Democrats to Republicans, and obviously from blue states to red states. But in addition to that, there is a growing tendency by voters to say none of the above. I'm not going to support either of you. CNN has found a dramatic growth in the number of voters who say that they are not Democrats and not Republicans, that they are independents. And this, I think, will have a dramatic effect on the election. CNN reports, for example, that the number of voters who identify as being independents and disliking both parties has increased dramatically. And the number of voters who would used to say they're Democrats do now say that they're independents, called double haters, it's called, is on the rise. About a quarter of the public views both major parties negatively. These double haters currently lean Democrats by 31 points in midterm forecasts, driven by more opposition to the GOP than support for the Democrats. But as of last month, American voters are expressing deep satisfaction, and over 60% believe the nation is on the wrong track. The war between the U.S. and Iran has driven up oil prices and affected voter sentiment. Major economic concerns include the cost of health care, food, and housing. Only 39% of Americans approve of President Trump's handling of the economy so far in his second term. And that's obviously as a result of the short-term effect of the inflation caused by the war. But about 1/4 of the public views both major parties negatively. And there are 31% more double haters are turning against the Democrats than against the Republicans. That's why in primaries around the country lately, the opposition to the Democratic candidates has grown. And they're losing not just to Republicans, although some are. They're also losing to their fellow Democrats. The capacity to turn elections around because of people who dislike both parties is very significant. Democrat Analia Maya may win next week's election to fill Mickey Sherrill's former House seat before she was elected in New Jersey. But if she does, it'll just offer the latest boost for progressives, who have notched a number of wins as the party debates its direction heading into the midterms. Maya was the top aide to Bernie Sanders' 2020 campaign and is expected to defeat Joe Hathaway in the race for New Jersey's 11th congressional district on Thursday. It would follow a recent pattern for progressives who have won races or overperformed in a number of battles. Evanston Mayor Daniel Biss, a progressive, last month won the Democratic primary for a House seat in Illinois over a more moderate candidate and another liberal contender. Biss defeated State Senator Laura Fine, who opposed conditions on aid to Israel, in addition to far-left challenger and social media influencer Kat Abayuga. While Biss enjoyed the advantage of Representative Schakowsky's Democrat of Illinois endorsement for a seat, the other progressive came from a notably close second at 26% to close in on Biss's 23%. So, all over the country, Democrats are turning on each other, having civil wars of progressive Democrats against moderate Democrats, and the progressives are winning, moving the party further and further to the left. I've always been saying that history teaches us that the candidate who loses a national election, be it Jimmy Carter or be it Walter Mondale or Mike Dukakis, his party always responds by moving to the left. The moderates leave that party and become independents or even join the other party. And we're seeing that now throughout the United States. And it's turning the Democratic Party more and more into the party of the left, the extreme left. And that's causing major changes in people's feelings about the party. One of the other changes that is significant is that the Trump administration has now killed the on-off switch in cars, or is in the process of killing it. The switch where you may have noticed you turn your car on, nothing happens, or you turn your car off and it doesn't go off.
No. When you're sitting at a light, your car shuts down to save like a drop of gas, and then when you take your foot off the brake, the car starts up again. Is that the switch he's talking about?
Yep.
Yeah. It's horrible. There's a switch on all my cars I have that you could turn that off. I think most cars probably have a button. You could auto stop, it's called, I think. Yeah, auto stop, and you shut it off. It's ridiculous. I've been saying it for years. What is this stupidity? That's the liberals making a call, like Subaru. The car tells you, don't go to this lane, don't go to that lane. It lowers your music and it beeps. I go, what the frig is with this car? It's telling me what to do, how to drive. It's a great car, but I can't drive it. It's ridiculous. You know what I mean?
The word is out on the battlefields of the world. China's weapons may be junk. Not the boats, the weapons. The word is out. China won't show up for its allies, and the weapons it sells to them are junk. The Communist Party in China has spent years trying to persuade the West that China is the upcoming military superpower, that its systems can hold Americans at bay, and that countries wanting something cheaper, simpler, cleaner, and less politically encumbered than U.S. weapons should look east. Russia's long-run aversion of this play, making itself the world's third largest arms supplier, with weapons sales its second largest export, basically a gas station with weapons to sell. China's been trying to imitate that as it grows its own arms exports. Its pitch is the same. It says America is tired, decadent, expensive, and overcomplicated, and we're the rising, smart, capable, and ruthless country that can win. But the pitch has been taking on water for some time. Ukraine already showed Russia's much-vaunted military strength to be its Potemkin village. China's own vulnerabilities received unwelcome scrutiny during last year's Operation Sindoor, when India's clash with Pakistan tested Chinese systems in combat and punctured the aura that Beijing had tried so hard to build. Venezuela and Iran have now both made the problem impossible to ignore for both Russia and China. Chinese systems that were supposed to deter, blind, protect, or complicate American operations were annihilated in the opening minutes of combat. The result is not merely embarrassment. It's a live demonstration. Bad weapons do not just lose wars, they lose customers when your goal is to sell weapons to other countries. So we're watching increasingly the disintegration of the Democratic Party. Increasingly, number of Democrats are moving to embrace progressives and extreme left candidates, and traditional Democrats are losing their seats and their elections to Republicans on the one hand and to radical left-wing Democrats on the other, and who eclipse the traditional leadership of the party. And that trend is very dangerous, very important, and happening extensively. While that's going on, pessimism is growing, but it hurts Democrats more. About 1/4 of the public views both major parties negatively. These double haters currently lean Democrat in perception, and this is increasingly complicating the Democrats' efforts to prevail in the midterm elections. Today and yesterday, the news was dominated by the concern that President Trump might impose a blockade on the Straits of Hormuz. So the very same action that the Iranian regime has been proposing may now happen under Trump. And you may now see more and more shipping threatened in the Strait because they can't get insurance and they can't get support from the country. In California, the state of the insane, serious pressure is growing on Stilwell, the Democrat who was charged in spying for China, and increasingly it looks like there will be a Republican in the runoff in California, whereas the Democrats had created the system where they hoped only Democrats would run. Trump has thrown its support to Steve Hilton, the former Fox News host, and the chances of an all-Democratic first round in California are dramatically reduced. Yesterday in the President's Truth Social, Trump went so far as to threaten a wipeout of civilization, a statement that elicited a huge response in America. If Iran did not come to the table and make a deal by the deadline, was the president really prepared to wipe out Iran entirely? Hegseth responded by describing the range of U.S. military options that had been prepared ahead of negotiations. Like I said, we had a target list locked and loaded of infrastructure, bridges, and power plants. Remember, this is a terror regime. Military regime used all of these things for dual-use purposes, to fund their military, to fund their anti-terror campaigns, and he continued by explaining how these capabilities were intended to serve as leverage. Iran knew exactly the scope of what we're capable of. We hit some military targets on Krog Island, which was a bit of a signal. They can't defend it. Iran ultimately understands their ability, their future to produce, to generate power, to fuel their terrorist regime was in our hands. It was in President Trump's hands. That's why they came to the negotiating table. Hegseth also pointed to the threat of additional strikes as a factor in reaching a ceasefire agreement. He said, ultimately, we can take it all from you. Your ability to export energy will be taken away, and the U.S. military's capacity to strike these things with impunity. That type of threat that brought them to the place where they can effectively say, hey, okay, we want to cut the deal. Early in the briefing, Hegseth addressed questions concerning Iran's nuclear program and reiterated the administration's position on nuclear capabilities. Hegseth said it's always been non-negotiable that we won't let them have nuclear capabilities. Either they will give it to us voluntarily or we'll have to do something else and take that opportunity out of their hands. Trump is lashing out also at conservative critics like Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, and Candace Owens. On Tuesday, after Trump threatened to wipe out Iranian civilization, Mr. Jones posted that Trump sounded like an unhinged supervillain from a Marvel comic movie. Megyn Kelly asked, can't he just behave like a normal human being? Well, Trump is not normal, and it's very clear that you defy him only at your peril. So what Trump has really done, it's very important to put this in perspective, is he has basically told Iran, okay, go threaten to kill yourself. Go threaten to strangle the world by an economic embargo, by closing the Straits of Hormuz. See if I care. That's not going to elicit a reaction from me. I simply won't let you do that, and I don't care if you try. And Trump has essentially taken the power to destroy the world out of Iran's hands, both by destroying their military capability and by destroying their capacity for suicide of destroying their own economic capacities. And it's been wonderful to watch. And this degradation of Iranian power comes at a key time in global history. And the threat of economic destruction of the world is now becoming increasingly remote as the United States takes away from Iran the power really to destroy the Western oil-based economy. Well, all this is going on. There are major changes going on in Latin America, and it's important that we understand what those are. Increasingly, when the United States moved against Maduro and arrested him and brought him to the U.S. to stand trial, people throughout Latin America, leaders and economists, began to realize that fundamentally the United States was moving against Russia and against China by moving against Maduro. That they were taking out of the hands of the anti-American forces the capacity to blockade the world. And they were creating a situation where the world will no longer be completely dependent on, when nobody in the world will be increasingly dependent on oil from the Middle East or from Maduro, but will be independent of it because they will realize that the only reliable source of oil and of energy is the United States. Now, a lot of people are looking at this situation globally and are saying that the U.S. is falling behind, that we're tied up in Iran, that we're mired in a never-ending war. But the fact of the matter is that we are rapidly and increasingly advancing, particularly in Latin America. We've destroyed the Maduro regime. We're about to move against Cuba dramatically, I think, and doing so by cutting off oil imports from Cuba to Cuba from Venezuela. And it's becoming very clear that Trump is making Latin America an American area. You look at the countries over the last couple of years who have switched from the left to right. Obviously, Maduro has done so involuntarily. Cuba is doing so involuntarily. In Honduras, the leftist regime was toppled in those free elections. Right now in the countries of Colombia and Peru and Brazil, regimes that biased pro-left and voted against the United States are threatening to be eliminated at the hands of their own voters. And it's increasingly realizing that the U.S. is succeeding economically at imposing a global embargo against the communists and against the former communists.
Hey, you know, Roxana does On This Day. On this day, Leonardo da Vinci was born 1452, and he died in 15.
Did you send him a present?
No, but happy birthday, Leo. My business is called Da Vinci Inspired Creation Studio. You know, I have a couple, but I've had that name of my business since I think I'm 15 or 16 years old. You know, and it was amazing the things this guy has done. It's amazing. But that's all I got. What other subjects do we have, Dick?
Blue states are pushing new taxes on high earners as millions in income and thousands of taxpayers are moving out of blue states toward red states. In California, New York, Washington, and Michigan, lawmakers are advancing proposals and ballot efforts aimed at top earners, including those who are leaving. Washington State is advertising a tax on incomes over $1 million, while California is pushing a tax on billionaires' net worth. Other states are weighing similar plans, including raises taxes on residents who leave and widening the scope of income taxations of those who remain. This literally is incredible. The left and governors like Kathy Hochul and Gavin Newsom are taxing people as they go and saying ultimately what we're going to do is we're going to make you stay.
Otherwise, it's a ransom.
Extorted.
A ransom.
Right, a ransom by paying higher taxes.
I think Yonkers did that a while back, a long time ago. It was like a 3% if you moved out. My father called it a ransom tax. They wanted like, I think 3 or 5% if you moved out. That's horrible. What do they how do they figure people I gotta tell you, you know, people are moving out and that's it. They're gonna go to Florida and Texas. Why would you stay here? Just that alone. The arrogance of that. Oh, I'm going to tax you if you move out. Really? If you leave my house, you don't like my dinner, it's going to cost you money. You know what I mean? Where are they going with
and
this?
State budgets are built around the shrinking group that's willing to sustain these higher taxes. But the response is usually to raise the taxes further. Well, increasingly, the only people left in these states are those willing to pay the higher taxes. Everybody else is left. And increasingly, the way that they're doing it is by raising taxes on those who remain, because they're the only ones who are willing to stay. It's an amazing situation. Blue state refugees migrating to red states are not the comically wealthy, but the ordinary working class and young folks who can no longer afford the Democratic degrowth agenda. Families leading the fight are increasingly living with parents and refusing to not living by themselves. 1/3 of all adults in the United States live with their parents, and 1/2 of adults under 35 live with their parents, including half of those in New York, Connecticut, and California. Since 2019, 400,000 families composed of married parents with children have moved from blue states to red states. The fact that 10 blue states, including California and New York, are trying to pass exit taxes to cordon in wealth as where residents flee for their friendlier governments, that gives the game away. In the short run, Democrats are panicked over the loss of revenue to fund their policies. In the long run, they're apoplectic over a projected loss of 11 seats in the House of Representatives and the Electoral College Republicans are slated to gain. Geographically, many of the fastest-growing counties are in states along the southeast coast of the U.S., in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia. Among the counties with populations of 20,000 or more, 9 of the top 10 fastest-growing counties were in the South, whereas were 45 of the top 50, the point that Betsy makes. The increasing suicide and the increasing death by 1,000 cuts of taxpayers in blue states fleeing, leaving. They say they're fleeing, but in fact they're leaving.
We have to leave this right now. We have to take a break.
Okay.
And when we come back, we'll talk more about this.
This is the Dick Morris Show on 77 WABC. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPirro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
How you doing,
One
Dick?
of the keys here to the affordability issue that has animated the Democrats is the housing situation. If you do get to own your own home, it's more than likely to be an inheritance, 19%, than the purchase of a new building, only 8%. For maybe a third of all Golden State Gen Xers, the only way to get married and start a family is literally to leave.
Oh, my God, it's unbelievable. It's so unbelievable. So what's next, Dick? I don't have any script.
Take some calls.
Oh, Leah, let's take a call. Leah from New York. Hi, Leah from New York. Hello, Leah from New York. Okay, we'll go to Jim in New York. Leah hung up. Sorry, Leah. Jim, New York?
Hey, Greenwood Lake?
How you doing?
I'm doing great. You know, I missed the first half hour of your show because I was doing my taxes. I'm 68. I'm retired. Last year, I had to pay $4,000. This year, under the big beautiful bill, I get back $1,000.
Wow.
That's a $5,000 thing.
That's
now, of
beautiful.
course, my utility bills in New York went from being $350 a month to $650 a month. That's the state legislature.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to thank Donald Trump for keeping me warm.
That's beautiful. I'm sure he's telling you, you're welcome.
That'll be increasingly
And
something we're going to be
do a
hearing
great
because most of Trump's tax cuts in the big beautiful bill are beginning to kick in now. And while they passed and they made big political headlines a year ago, they've not really taken effect until now, later in the tax season. And what Steve is reporting is going on throughout the country, and it's silently building a political base for Donald Trump.
So let's take some more calls. Let's go to Michael in New York. Hi, Michael. How you doing?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Whenever I hear about a movement to save our fellow humans from dying in these wars that have been going on since the beginning of time, I mean, there was a gentleman that wrote a book, and the author was interviewed on the Amish show, and he says all these wars with all these all these countries were fought without us sitting down and speaking with the leaders. I couldn't believe that. How could they do that? They go, okay, just send the troops over there and let's engage. But, you know, we don't have to kill each other. And that's what Trump's all about. And I believe in him. If that's all he ever does in life, the guy, he's a winner, okay? And I want to know what I can do. I want to join the Republican Party. I want to go to the meeting in Manhattan, the Women's Club.
Oh, it's great. You will love that club. First of all, it's absolutely beautiful. It's on 51st Street, right by St. Patrick's, right there, walk away. And it's a beautiful building. They have a restaurant. They have meeting rooms. They have it's just a convention. It's just Absolutely beautiful. And all the people are just the nicest people. You know, for Republicans are nice anyway, but it's a beautiful club to be. Everyone should really look into the Women's Republican Club and really to strengthen us all, you know, and the more people that join, you know, and you're looking at, we did a beautiful fundraiser for Betsy there, or she did it. We didn't do it. She did it, and we went and Dick spoke. So it's a great club. Absolutely.
How do I get invited? It says men are not really welcome, but they can come as guests.
Yeah, I don't know if it says men aren't really welcome.
It used to be called the Manhattan Women's Republican Club, but now they accept everybody. What's the address?
It's 350 West 51st
Yeah, 3
Street.
West 51st Street.
Right by Rockefeller Center, right? You know, walk out the door, you see Rockefeller Center. But it's a great place. You could go. Absolutely. There's a lot of men there.
There are 8 blue states that already have or are considering raising income tax or wealth taxes. Here's a list. In Washington State, Governor of Washington signed a 10% income tax on earnings of over $1 million. Rhode Island is considering a 3% surtax on incomes over $1 million, known as a millionaire's tax. In New York, Mandami is proposing another 2% income tax increase on high-income earners, taking the city's top tax rate to 18.5%. That's before you keep any of your own money. California is proposing a billionaire tax, a one-time 5% tax on net worth for residents worth over $1 billion. In Virginia, Democratic legislators proposed a 10% tax bracket for incomes over $1 million and a new tax on net investment income. Michigan proposed a 5% income tax surtax on high earners, raising the top marginal rate there to 9.25%. And if this list does not convince you to switch parties, your wallet will, because the Democrats have only begun to go crazy. The net effect of the Democratic reaction to the Trump power in government and the Trump agenda forcing itself in Washington is to retreat to the high-tax blue states and soak their residents as much as they possibly can. And Mandami's victory was the beginning of that process. If Hochul is reelected in New York, it will simply increase that. If Ned Lamont is elected in Connecticut and Betsy McCoy does not win, that trend will continue there. There's only one strategy that is effective for keeping your tax bill down, and that is to move.
Or elect a Republican, somebody like Betsy, not somebody like Betsy, elect Betsy in Connecticut, Bruce Blakeman in New York, right? Where else, Dick? How about Jersey?
Well,
Chitterella would have been
talked
great.
about Washington State, which is about to enact a gigantic income tax, 10%.
Who were the conservatives running in Washington?
I don't know.
Yeah, we have to find out.
Virginia, which just changed governors, is now proposing a 10% tax. The California billionaire tax, a 5% tax on net worth for residents over $1 billion. The New York, where Mandami is proposing another 2%.
And don't believe Newscomb that he's going to fix the roads, because he's not going to fix the roads so nobody could drive out of California. He's going to fix some walls across the road.
That's the only exit strategy he's got.
Yeah, that's all he's got. Unbelievable. So, anyway.
The Republicans figured a way, the Democrats, figured a way to make sure that Democrats were elected. They did that in California by saying that the top 2 candidates in the primaries would run against each other. And if one of them was a Democrat and one was a Republican, you'd have one from each party. But increasingly, the Republicans are defying them by winning the election, winning the second and third places in the elections. There's a guy named who is a former Fox News host, Steve Hilton, who is running for governor of California as a Republican. And he is very likely to win by finishing third, which means that there will no longer just be two Democrats in the first primary.
Interesting.
A very interesting tactic.
Steve Hilton, is he
Stowell, who
oh my God.
is
That
also
guy
running,
should go to jail.
Yeah, he should be. He's running for Senate for governor of California, and he was earlier accused, with evidence, of having a Chinese girlfriend who turned out to be a spy for the Chinese Communist Party. Democrats rewarded him by giving him a seat on the Intelligence Committee, where he has access to lots of information of great interest to his girlfriend and to the Chinese Communist Party. Now there's pressure on Stillwell to leave the race, not because he's compromising America, but because he is being sued for sexual harassment by a number of people who are on his staff, and they're quitting in numbers. So we're finally, this guy who for years has compromised the security of the United States by giving secrets to the Chinese.
Yeah, and he's creepy looking.
The guy's now is finally going to have to leave because of his own sexual harassment charges.
Yeah, Joe Concha just talked about that too. But he's also creepy. Like when he talks and the things he says is just great. You know who we have to have on is Brandon Gill. He's really going out all these. I don't know if he went at what's his name, Stowell, whatever his name is. How do you say his name?
Stowell.
Yeah,
Gill is a congressman from Texas who Doug and I worked for and helped get elected. His father is Dinesh D'Souza.
That's his father-in-law, right?
Who did the movie 2,000 Mules,
right,
exposing voter fraud. Mm-hmm. And he has been a sensational member of Congress.
Really great.
Taking the lead on issues of voter integrity, voter identification, the SAFE Act to stop illegals from voting.
The first time he started talking to some Congress people, it was, what's her name, Crockett? Yeah. What do I call it? Jasmine Crockett? I call it something. I don't want to talk about it. That was like one of the first people he took on. It was fantastic. After that, he just went to everybody. And he just, you know what? He's an honest guy. He just goes at it. And he's so smart and he speaks well and he just goes at them. And they don't have anything after he goes. He'll ask him a question and they'll say, well, he said, no, it's not the answer. It's a yes or no. And he go, well, then he'll answer the question, then just move on. He's really fantastic. Brandon Gill, somebody you'll hear from increasingly in our politics. Yeah. So let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue. Take some more calls.
This is the Dick Morris Show on 77 WABC. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPirro Show, sponsored by the U.S. Patriot Gold.
I love how
there's a contest going on in the Middle East as to who can close the Straits of Hormuz first and who can close it more decisively. Iran says that it will and has blocked passage through the Straits, blocking 20% of the world oil from reaching the international markets because they can't get through the Strait. But now Trump is doing them one better, and he's saying that if you blockade the Straits, or impose an entrance fee, which is their latest scheme, we will blockade the Straits. And nobody will be able to get through, not because of the Iranian Navy, such as it is, but the American Navy. So the U.S. and Iran are basically agreed on one thing. The Straits will close and oil won't flow from it.
Yeah, but that's going to hurt China and Russia also.
And it's freaking out the global oil markets.
Right.
But it is a short-term thing.
Right.
I think that very quickly the markets will recover. I think we'll be in pretty good shape. The numbers for Trump right now are not good because of the concerns over the economy. But that is a short-term phenomenon, and Trump is winning this war. Iran is on the verge of collapse. And we're seeing it all over the place, and it'll soon be increasingly evident.
Wasn't Iran, didn't they have a problem with their water shortage and all this other stuff
Yeah,
for a while?
Nobody's reported on that, but Iran terror is basically running out of water. The entire city is sinking, and the wells are drying up in the country. And they're increasingly going to run out of water, which is going to be something
unbelievable. We're going to take a couple of calls.
Please.
And my friend Ray wants to talk about the potholes in your tax dollar. Hey, Ray.
Hey, Dougie. Hey, Dick. Happy Easter. Happy Passover. So, the potholes up here in Putnam County, and I'm sure it's all over the place, you know, they start patching them. And here's the thing. They throw a shovel full of asphalt right in the hole. They don't tamp it down, and they just move on to the next one. Then the cars start driving, and all that stuff comes out. It's a waste of taxpayers' money.
Wow.
Now, I happen to know someone that just about a year ago got on the job up here for the county, and I questioned why.
That's Putnam County, right?
Putnam County.
Yeah.
Yes. Why don't you guys tamp it down? And his exact answer was, my supervisor said, "What's the matter? You have a problem with overtime?"
Unbelievable.
Unreal.
I mean,
and you got to put tar. You got to put tar in it and tamp it down. Otherwise, it's just little pebbles. It's tiny little pebbles.
It's empty by the next day.
Yeah.
You know. So that's where our tax dollars are going.
That's great. Tax
That's
dollars.
incredible.
That's a beautiful thing. All right, Ray, thank you very much. Ray had a beautiful, great Whistling Willie's in Cold Spring. It was great place. Right, Ray? Oh, he's off. Anyway, let's go to Stu from Brooklyn. Hey, Stu.
Hi, Stu.
Hey, guys. Trump is so brilliant, and I don't hear it commented on. He's played the Chinese like it's a kabuki show. Act one. Pretending that we have no control over Hormuz meant the Chinese didn't get oil for a while. It created havoc. Act two, and this is the part that scares me. China has to do something, and the Iranians have to do something to get back into the game. Mm-hmm. And what are the options? Option one, take out one of our carriers. How? A Chinese hypersonic anti-carrier missile, YJ-20. Now, the Chinese are not stupid enough to allow the Iranians to openly buy one. So the scenario will be, after it's done, General Mushu illegally sold it and profited personally, and we have him on trial, and he's going to be executed. What do you think? Wow. Oh, by the way, I also think that anything else to happen in Iran will require that the Iranians discover the night of Sicilian Vespers.
The night of what?
The night of Sicilian Vespers.
What's that? What's that?
The night of Sicilian Vespers was the night in the 15th and 16th century when the citizens of Sicily got so fed up with being ruled by a French king that they rebelled and they killed thousands of French officials and soldiers and retook control of Sicily.
Wow.
Citizen uprising, that's what it was.
Got it. All right,
that's
thanks.
Before my time.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for the briefing, though.
All right, how about Stephen? How's Stephen doing? Hello, Stephen. Did we lose him? I think we lost him. Marilyn?
Hello.
Hi, Marilyn.
Hello.
Hi, Marilyn.
Thank you both. I have concerns about high-income earners moving out of blue states and moving into red states, and I feel that there may be a long-term goal of the Democrats to keep raising taxes in blue states, but also to send these high-income Democrats to red states where they can vote in state and local elections.
Well, hopefully they'll leave their sanity. They'll take their sanity with them, and the Democrats who are being forced by their own high taxes to leave their high-tax states will leave them behind and will embrace sanity.
And vote Republican.
The data so far shows, particularly in California and Florida, that when high-tax state Democrats, blue state Democrats, leave those states, are forced out of those states because of the high tax levels, they tend to vote Republican and tend to vote conservative. And that animates the huge Republican gains in California and in Texas. So I think that that's basically going to be a positive phenomenon.
They're just not the smartest people, though. They might just go to red states and vote blue again. I can't see it happening, but I do somewhat see that how they're not very smart. Listen, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back. I think we're going to come back to Roxana again. Okay, when we come back.
This is the Dick Morris Show on 77 WABC. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPirro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
So this morning, I went over the show with Roxana, and she had so many ideas and so many things. So we're bringing her back to Roxana. How you doing, Roxana?
I'm down here in Delray Beach, Florida.
Really?
But looking forward to Connecticut when it starts to bloom. When Dick was talking about thinking, it brought to mind, and it is true, I do like history with what today brings forth, to look back on. And I'd like to acknowledge the sinking of the Titanic in 1912 today, and the 1,500 people that went down. That
was the unsinkable ship, right?
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And the other thing when you're talking about the Women's Republican Club, there's a woman, I don't know if everyone's familiar with her name, Harriet Quimby. She was actually the first American aviator woman to fly across the English Channel. And you don't hear her name very much, so I just wanted to acknowledge her.
What's her name?
As well.
Say it again, her name?
Her name is Harriet Quimby.
Mm-hmm.
And she was the first woman aviator who went across the English Channel in 1912, this very same day that the Titanic went down.
Wow. So, Titanic went down, she went up.
That's
right.
it. But on another subject with vaccines, there was something today after 2 years of studying it and testing it multiple times. On this day, today in 1955, they finally put out, after 2-year trials, the polio vaccine. And so there was like an 80 to 90% effectiveness in preventing polio. So it just goes to show that you do need the research, like Kennedy is always talking about. You just can't take a vaccine within a few weeks and expect them not to be.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a question. Is that mark on my left shoulder, on my arm, from the polio vaccine?
Yeah,
that's correct.
Probably it's from the Sabin vaccine. Originally, the anti-polio vaccine was the Sabin vaccine, which was a dead vaccine virus, and they would kill a polio virus and put it in your body, and your body would react. The Salk vaccine was commonly called, and that would give you immunity. But then the scientists, led by a guy named, I think it was Carl Sabin, came in and said it would be more effective if you inject live polio viruses.
Wow.
Right.
And they would be more effective. Some would live. Some might actually give people polio. But the overwhelming vast majority would be more effective than the dead vaccine virus. And
it was, you're correct, it was Jonas Salk.
Yeah.
That was his name.
And there were demonstrations all over the world to try to force the government to just do the Salk vaccine. And ultimately it was effective and eradicated polio.
That was pretty good that Dick's able to get that. A week ago, Dick was very sick. and he couldn't think straight and whatnot, and he's getting better, and boom, just to pull that up, I can't believe
it. This is exactly verbatim what the article
better.
said.
He's back. Let me ask you this question. You probably don't know this answer either, and probably Dick doesn't either. What's the cutoff with the mark on your arm?
Oh, that was the bite of the devil.
No, but what's the cutoff? Like, what generation does not have that mark? I would say they stopped doing that.
The Salk vaccine was in 1954 or 55, yeah.
Well, I'm born in 61. I have it.
And polio was at the time a horrible disease.
Yeah.
That was one of the leading killers in the United States.
You're not answering my question.
And let's not forget that this was one of the major changes that's taken place.
You were vaccinated in 61, Doug, to answer your question. They stopped doing it that way in the mid-60s.
Thank you, Roxy. You sure? I thought it was later.
After you, Doug.
They sent Vance to Iran to negotiate with the successors of the Ayatollah. And one of the reasons I think they sent Vance, so far it's been unsuccessful, is that Vance originally was not enthusiastic about attacking Iran. And he took a lot of flack for that. And the MAGA movement, the strong supporters of Trump, began to get on his case for not supporting the effort to wipe out the Ayatollah. And I think in sending Vance to try to negotiate this, Trump is basically conceding to him and saying, okay, give it a try, guys.
Figure it out. That's right. Yeah. He's come back and they're going to tell him it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. It was an honor here, Dick Morris. Thank you so much, Roxana. It was an honor to be
you're welcome.
here. It's an honor, Dick Morris. Thank you very much, everyone. Next week.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
No. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
No. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Dick Morris Show. You can hear The Dick Morris Show Sundays at noon. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?